Welcome to the first in a series of lessons on how to model and animate a beach house in 3D Studio Max. Now, the sketch that you're seeing at the moment was done in preparation for this task, and it involves the idea that before doing a modelling task, it's always a very good idea to get your ideas down on paper. This series of tutorials will consist of approximately 8 to 10 tutorials covering all aspects of this task, and they'll be sent out to you on a fairly regular basis. You can expect to receive at least 2, possibly 3 per week. We'll be going over to 3D Studio Max in a moment, and I hope that you'll be able to follow these tutorials. If you're having any difficulties, you have my contact details. Feel free to call. But it's always a good idea to look back over the tutorial. Something you may have missed, you'll pick up on the second viewing. So we're ready to go with 3D Studio Max. I'll just minimise that view, so we've got our normal startup layout. In fact, just to make sure that's all good, I'll go to Reset. There it is. Okay, now we are going to start off by creating some very simple objects. So the main building is going to start its life as a simple box. So we go to Box, and we just create a box that's basically the size and shape of, or the proportions I should say, of a small simple building. One of the things that I want to emphasize here is that it's really important to keep this simple. Okay, it's a bit tempting for some people with a little bit of previous experience to want to build the beach mahal, the Taj Mahal at the beach, and that's not the idea of this task. It's a simple 1-bedroom cottage. Okay, it's going to be a rectangular building. This is about quantity rather. Oops, nearly got it wrong. This is about quality rather than quantity. Okay, so I want to try and encourage you to get away from the idea that in order to be good, something has to be huge. All right, what we're talking about here is a tiny home. Okay, so we're going to apply the principles of tiny homes to keep this in proportion to the task. So there we have our basic box. What we need to do now is to modify it. So we go to the Modify button up here, and we're going to apply measurements or parameters to this object. Okay, and we're going to use what's called real-world measurements or real-world parameters. So the actual numbers that we put in are going to relate to the sizes in the real world. So the length of this building is going to be 12 metres long, and we're going to express that as millimetres, and we're simply going to do that. There is a more complex way, but the easy way is just to type in 12,000. The width of the building is going to be 9 metres, so that'll be 9,000. The height of the building is going to be 2.7 metres, so that's 2,700. Now at that point you'll notice that the perspective screen pretty much goes black, and that's because we need to zoom out to actually see this now. We can use the zoom tool, or you can simply use the roller on your mouse it's a bit clunkier than using the zoom tool, but it does the same job. I want you to go into each of the other views and zoom out as well so that you can see those views in each of the 3 other viewports. So we've got top, left and front. Next thing we need to do is to hollow out the inside of the block to make it so that we've got some wall thickness around the outside walls of the building. There's a number of ways that we can do that. The easiest way would be to clone that box and rescale it slightly. Now we'll work on the theory that the walls are 120, we'll call it 110 millimetres thick. Actually we'll make it 120. So what that means is that we've got 90 millimetre framing, we've got a layer of plaster on the inside that's 10 millimetres, that takes it up to 100. and the cladding on the outside is going to be 20 millimetres thick. So if we make the walls 120 millimetres thick, that will work pretty nicely. So I'm going to maximise that top view. I'm going to select the box, and I'm going to go Edit, Clone, Copy. Okay, so I've actually now got two boxes there. Okay, I'll just make sure they're in the same position again. Now I want to resize the second one, and because I'm going to make my walls 120 millimetres thick, all these numbers over here need to be reduced by 240 millimetres. So 120 on each side and 120 on each end. So 12,000 minus 240 is going to be 11,760. 11,760. 9,000 minus 240 is going to be 8,760. So 8760. Now, as far as the height's concerned, we're actually creating an object that we're going to use as the subtraction part of a Boolean subtraction operation. So just make it anything more than 2,700. I'll make it ridiculously big. I'll go 10,000. That's really easy to grab hold of. Okay? And then press enter. Now, you might notice that we've now got two boxes. If you look closely, that second box that we created has shrunk very evenly around the inside of the building. If we go back to a 3D view, there it is there. We'll drop that big box down a little, just drop it straight down using the Select and Move tool. And now it's a simple Boolean operation to remove that box. So we click on the original box that we had. There it is there. We go to Create. Next to Standard Primitives, scroll down to Compound Objects. Click on Pro Boolean. Click on Start Picking. And click on that bigger box or the taller box that we made. So what we've now got is the outer shell of the building. Now at this point it's probably worth mentioning that the beach house that we're creating is going to look photorealistic. That's an industry term for looks like it's a photo of a real building. Okay, so when you complete your little movie of this and show it to the people at home, they won't believe you when you tell them that you created this on a computer. It will look like it's an actual beach house. So it doesn't look anything like that at the moment, but it's a step-by-step process. Now, at this point, it's not a bad idea to think about what sort of cladding you're going to put on the outside of your building. So what we're going to do is go into Google. I'll use Google Chrome, so I'm just going to shrink that down. That's sitting there. I'll go onto Google Chrome, and I want a weatherboard texture map. So weatherboard texture map. The words texture map are really important when you're searching for a texture. If you just put weatherboards in there, you're going to get a whole lot of random pages to do with weatherboards. But if you put texture map, it knows what you're looking for. And we'll go to more. Actually, we'll just maximize that. We'll go to Tools, and we'll go Size. Where's size gone? We've lost size. Settings. Normally when you click on Tools, size comes up. Oh, hang on, I didn't have images. Silly me. Okay, go Tools, Size, oops. Now, large, we want a large texture. And there's quite a collection of different weatherboards there. Remember, this is a beach house, so we want something that looks a bit beachy. We want something that doesn't have any watermarks on it, okay? So if it's got watermarks like that one there, or that one, they're no good, okay? So I'm thinking this one here looks all right. I don't like that one there because it's on an angle, and that's not going to map onto your building correctly. So it's got to be nice, and the features in the image need to run parallel to the edge of the image. So that one called New Zealand Weatherboard, I like the look of that. It's it's got some bird poo and stuff on it. I quite like that because that enhances the beachy kind of look. Okay, so we're going to right click on that. We're going to save it somewhere, and it would be a good idea to save it to a more permanent storage location, but at this stage let's just drop it onto the desktop. Okay, so I'll put it onto my desktop, and you'll notice it comes up with a random file name. You need to give it a name that makes sense, because when you're looking for it later, you want to know what it is. So call it weatherboard. And as you know, I'm in the habit of putting a date on things. So today's date is the 2nd of the 4th, so I'm going to go 0204. So not only do I know what it is, but I know when I saved it. So hit the save button. I'll minimise that, maximise that. Actually, no, I won't. I'll leave that minimised, and I'll go onto my desktop and find weatherboard. And I'm going to drag with the left button down, drag that and drop it onto that object. Now if that message comes up, it's trying to put it in as a background rather than onto the object. So we cancel that and we'll try again. Hopefully it's a little bit tricky to get it to actually connect with. There we go, that's on. Okay, so if we go back to here, and I'll zoom in a little more so you get a better look at it. Now the scaling on the outside is good. I'm actually pretty happy with that. I don't really need to change that, but I'm not real happy with what's going on the inside. Now we'd probably cover that over with some thin boxes that look like plaster, but I'll just show you a couple of things to do with texture mapping, so we can refine that a little bit. So if we go to modify over here and modify a list and scroll down to UVW map. All right, they're all in alphabetical order, so it's going to be down the bottom-ish of the list, UVW map. And just clicking on that made things change, not in a way that we want. Now, plain arm is the option that we would select if it was going to be, the texture was going to be stuck onto a flat surface. This box is not a flat surface, all right? It's a three-dimensional surface, okay? So that's no good. Cylindrical would be if the object was predominantly a cylinder-based shape. Spherical, obviously, if it's a ball shape. Shrink wrap you use when things are a bit more random, such as if you were trying to put some fur onto the body of an animal or something or other, you'd probably use shrink wrap. But for the one we want, it's box, okay? And by doing that, that gets it pretty good. Now, normally here I'd show you how to change the scaling on that. But in fact, we've fluked it. It's about the width of the weatherboards is about right. If you did need to scale it, let's have a look at the U tile. That defaults to 1. Let's give it a 3 and see what happens. Okay, that changes the length of the image. So now I've got 3 reproductions of that image across the width or length of each wall. I don't want that. I'll just leave it on 1. If I change the V tile, let's say I'll put the 3 on there. Right, I've got lots and lots. I've got 3 lots of the image going vertically, and it makes our weatherboards look very thin. If I went 0.3, makes them look ridiculously wide. So we've got a lot of control about how wide we can have those weatherboards looking. And I'm thinking somewhere about, well, in fact, just go back to 1 because it actually worked. Normally you'd have to change that, but for this particular image, it works. In the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how to cut the holes through the walls to place windows and doors. Okay, so look forward to that. That will be coming to you quite soon.